Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another detailed forecast to update coming your way. We're going to be talking about some very heavy rainfall that's expected to materialise over central Australia throughout the next 24 to 48 hours, and we're also going to be talking about how that is going to develop into an east coast low type system, bringing a lot of rainfall to Tasmania, Victoria and New South Wales, which is now on the forecast. We're going to continue to talk about that monstrous cold snap that's engulfing Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania, another brutally cold night last night. We'll also be talking about some rainfall up in far north Queensland and a week-long period of some strong cold fronts expected to impact Western Australia. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, and please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. Your support is greatly appreciated. So we're going to start things off with Central Australia. You can skip around in the description to the parts of the video that interest you the most. We're going to start things off with the rainfall though in Central Australia. A couple of showers already expected to materialise across the Central Australia, just at least north of Adelaide into South Australia throughout the course of today. There are a few currently on the radar, especially outside of the Roxby Downs radar. We can already start to see a few showers starting to develop through here, but nothing too heavy, and they are very isolated like I have been saying, and it's going to take them another 48 hours or so to become proper rainfall. It's just going to be this light to moderate kind of rain stuff in very isolated pockets of South Australia, as this trough line, which you can see on the synoptic chart, starting to extend itself across from the Queensland coastline right through Queensland into South Australia and as far south as Ceduna, tailing off on a low pressure system offshore from the Great Australian Bight and the West Australian South Australia border, and that's going to be what's driving this little moisture pool that's going to be moving through South Australia and into the Northern Territory and Queensland. And you can see it here. It starts to fire up some heavier showers and storms into northern Queensland and the Northern Territory as well, a late Friday afternoon. Same thing as yesterday. They are very isolated. They're going to be few and far between, and they shouldn't be housing too much in the way of very heavy rainfall. There will be places that pick up 50 millimetres or so Friday night if one of these thunder showers do get themselves over a weather station, because they're going to be slow moving, and moderate to heavy rainfall over a couple of hours means 50 millimetres or more in terms of rainfall. The rainfall will be a little bit more predictable into South Australia. It'll be more like rainfall, but it's only going to be light to moderate rain bands around Ceduna, and then up further north towards Cooper Pedy, Roxby Downs meant to be that sort of area. The rainfall will be a lot more predictable, but it will be a lot lighter through there, and I'm not expecting decent falls in South Australia. 10 millimetres as a maximum on Friday and then into Saturday. The rainfall does seem to pick up a little bit Saturday morning. You can see these thunderstorms become a little bit more concentrated in the southwestern corners of Queensland, and they do seem a little bit more intense as well, especially trailing from the Northern Territory along this trough line here. They do seem quite significantly more intense than what they were on Friday night, and these thunderstorms will continue through the desert parts of Queensland, the Northern Territory and South Australia right through Saturday, while the moderate rainfall takes hold on the southern parts, or the southern half of South Australia at least. Now, this heavy rainfall on Friday and Saturday in Queensland, the Northern Territory and South Australia, as I've been saying for the last couple of days, going to cause washouts. For those travelling through the central parts of Australia, you must take extra care on the roads. Contact your Shire authorities or the police to make sure that you are travelling on roads that aren't going to be closed off, or just to be safe, head further north, get as far north as Mount Isa, and then you should be out of the clear from these thunderstorms here. Already in a very wet part of Australia comparative to the average year, the soil moisture values are approaching 50-60% here, so we're going to be talking about rainfall that's going to just become runoff in a lot of cases here, and it's going to be causing some serious problems to the road network in this part of Central Australia. So the grey nomads and the travellers through central parts of Australia, seek an alternative route, or make sure you know exactly what you're doing and what roads are closed, because these roads are going to turn to slush pretty quickly under 50 or 80 millimetres of rain, which is entirely possible through Saturday and Sunday. The rainfall actually is quite intense at times, especially on the backside of this low pressure trough system here, and the low pressure system which will be housed in South Australia. So the rainfall will be at its worst through rural South Australia, but still expecting some heavy falls up into Queensland and in the southern parts of South Australia, as well as far south as Port Augusta and the Eyre Peninsula. The rainfall will then on Sunday and into Sunday evening track into New South Wales and the more agricultural parts of Queensland, as far towards the east as Charleville and Roma, but the rainfall will be light, and at its absolute worst it will only be moderate here and there. Moderate rainfalls are still possible into Monday morning, and then they become light rainfall as this system moves towards the Queensland coastline. Now, before we talk about the East Coast low-type system that's expected to develop from this weather event that isn't entirely supported by other forecast models, we'll talk about rainfall accumulations here through Queensland, New South Wales, the Territory, and South Australia. So areas around Ceduna, Coober Pedy, Roxby Downs, and in general areas south of Oodnadatta, we're expecting accumulations to be pretty steady, between 40 and 50 millimetres for a lot of these places. Ceduna expecting 45, Streaky Bay 35, up towards Roxby Downs 40 millimetres. Maria is also expecting 40 millimetres of rain or so as well. Coober Pedy is kind of the cutoff in terms of a latitude for where the rainfall will become predictable and unpredictable. Further south of Coober Pedy, expecting a predictable steady rainfall to fall above 25 millimetres, but communities such as Mintabee and Oodnadatta expecting a very hit and miss 4 or 5 millimetres in each location. Once again, they could get much more than 5 millimetres and they could get absolutely nothing. So we're going to have to watch out for that very closely. In short, areas around the Lake Eyre catchment, though, are going to be receiving some pretty significant falls. In fact, around Moomba, which is historically one of Australia's driest places, and Birdsville as well, one of Australia's driest places, we're expecting unpredictable rainfall, but still up to 50 millimetres is possible, and that's up to a year's worth of rainfall for some of these locations, flowing right into Lake Eyre and through some of the rivers that are already flowing in this part of Central Australia. It is a big concern in terms of how much rainfall is expected. We're also expecting a healthy 50 to 70 millimetres in some parts of Queensland. For areas between Birdsville and Mount Isa where these thunderstorms are going to fire up, I know it's not a big population interest, but we're still expecting some very good rainfall through there. Also some good rainfall in this part of central Queensland or central southern Queensland, south of Charleville, on the extremes of the agricultural regions here and on the belt of the pastoral grounds. We're expecting some pretty good rainfall, up to 50 millimetres of the stuff. Burke is expecting 40 millimetres in New South Wales. Tilbura also expecting 40 millimetres or so. Broken Hill is going to be a hit and miss, 30 millimetres. So again, we'll just have to wait and see what's actually expected there over the coming couple of days. But this is a lot of rainfall and it will likely cause some significant problems to the road network. While we're on the topic of this rainfall, I'm just going to bring this out to the 10-day forecast. You can see some good rainfall expected to extend down the New South Wales coastline and even into the agricultural parts of New South Wales around Griffith, the Orange, and up towards Albury as well. We're expecting some pretty good rainfall through here, between 10 and 30 millimetres of the stuff, and that's because once this low pressure system gets itself into New South Wales Monday and Tuesday, we're going to see the low pressure system, or the actual source of the energy, fire up behind it, and that's going to be creating some light to moderate rainfall in what almost looks like an east coast low, but actually over land for this part of New South Wales and Victoria. Now this is drought breaking rainfall, to be honest. Good 20 or 30 millimetres on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday will be much needed for this part of Australia. You can see parts through Victoria expecting 30 to 40 millimetres or so, and it's really not hit and miss rainfall. It's pretty steady. There are a few places that will miss out. They'll be around Mildura on the northwestern parts of Victoria. And we're also expecting some pretty hit and miss rainfall through the extreme eastern or the central western parts of New South Wales, rather. Again, my geography all messed up, in the mountains as well, missing out on the rainfall, but they certainly don't need any more of the stuff at this time. But yeah, it does look like a pretty good forecast in terms of rainfall. Tasmania as well, not missing out there. The system will be swept away by a strong cold front sometime Wednesday or Thursday. The majority of this energy is actually being powered by a West Australian system that's expected to cross the coast sometime Saturday afternoon, but more on that later on in the video. And a few thunderstorms also possible up the Queensland side of things as well. We're going to just keep a very close eye on this weather system. The rainfall is very much predictable between the forecast models, all major forecast models saying the exact same thing, more or less. So we're going to have to, there's not really much waiting and seeing, to be honest, but it does look like we've got a very easy forecast ahead of us. The Axis G3, just one major anomaly, and that is 100 millimetres outside of Ceduna in South Australia. The other forecast models not mentioning that, but again, we will keep an eye on things as they happen. There'll be a very detailed forecast on this on the day that it happens, that being Friday and Saturday. I'm going to just shift focus temporarily to far north Queensland before we talk about that extreme cold snap. We've got some heavy rainfall in all due respect expected up in far north Queensland, 150 millimetres of the stuff expected outside of Innisfail and Tully over the next 10 days. Now, it's not reciprocated as much between the forecast models. The Eastern will have definitely the runaway leader in terms of how much rainfall is expected up here, but it's good rainfall, that's for sure, and it's going to be happening pretty soon too. There are a couple of showers expected to move through the area throughout the course of today. They're going to really start up this afternoon and evening, and it's going to be later on this evening and into early tomorrow morning when the rainfall really does become a lot more steady and predictable. predictable. Friday evening will be the wettest. We're actually expecting some pretty heavy falls here and there from an onshore flow through Friday evening and Saturday morning. The rainfall hopefully easing off by Saturday afternoon, but still some heavy showers here and there. And then come Sunday, the rainfall eases off pretty much for good and just some light showers here and there for the remainder of next week. But yeah, it does look like some pretty good rainfall coming ashore Friday afternoon and into early Saturday morning. It's just going to be that heavy, slow-moving onshore flow type stuff, or moderate to heavy onshore, slow-moving type stuff. And you can already see it on the radar imagery right here. If I play through the 12-hour loop, you can see already some decent falls have started to occur. I bet you're all sick of the rainfall up here in far north Queensland. Cairns hasn't had too much of the stuff just yet. They've only had a couple of millimetres overnight, but there have been places up around the Daintree and also outside of Innisfail and Tully that have picked up 20 mil, and there's another 20 mil coming today and another 20 mil tomorrow, and you get the idea. We're expecting some good accumulations over the coming 5 days, so just stay safe around the roads up here. Stay safe if you do live in a flood-prone area. As I did say yesterday, the rivers are already flowing pretty much at capacity, and soil moisture values are also at about 99 or 100% up here, and I'll just show you the map right now. They are entering what looks like a little bit of drought here. The soil moisture values outside of Cairns a little bit lower than average, but in terms of absolute values here, they are very much still around that 99 to 100%, so that means any further rainfall up here, it's just going to become runoff, and 150 millimetres of the stuff Friday and Saturday could become flooding. So just stay safe around rivers. If you do live in a very flood-prone area, I do recommend having your flood action plans in place and evacuate if necessary. It's not a weather event that's got many heads turned, considering it's just concentrated to a very small location up here, but still it has caught my eye, and I'm just giving you the heads up here that a little bit of rainfall is expected to come through. You can see by the end of this weekend into Monday, that big expanse of 100% soil moisture values has expanded a little bit further, and those drought-like conditions have eased off, and those soil moisture values back to being well above average for the Daintree and the Cassowary coastline. So yeah, just stay safe if you are up here. Now, before we move on and talk about those powerful cold fronts impacting Western Australia, I'd still like to talk about this absolutely brutal cold snap that is plaguing the southern parts of Australia. Leeuwarnwe, once again, the coldest place in Australia last night, minus 13 degrees Celsius. That is Arctic. That is an absolutely brutal thing to wake up to, minus 13 degrees Celsius, and they're not going to get far above zero today either. You can see last night the ground temperatures were down well below minus 10 degrees Celsius, and you can see some thick fog already inundating this part of Tasmania, all powered by a strong high pressure system that's currently situated over the top of Tasmania, and you can see on the rainfall map keeping a lot of this rainfall at bay, but it is streaming a little bit ashore up in New South Wales, and that's keeping temperatures a little bit more mild there. But for locations around Victoria and South Australia, just brutally cold, that's for sure. A very powerful high pressure system currently inundating Tasmania at this time, and it's nearly midday over there, and temperatures still refusing to rise far above freezing, and they're not going to get above 10 degrees Celsius today. This high pressure system keeping those Arctic winds and Arctic air temperatures right over the top of Tasmania, and absolutely freezing start to today, and I do feel awful for them down there. I don't know how they survive in minus 13 degrees Celsius, and it's not much better in Victoria as well. The mountains around Victoria dipping to minus 7 last night, Thredbo dipping to a brutal minus 10 as well, but that still is nothing for Tasmania's minus 13, and sub-zero temperatures still also for parts of South Australia. This morning they woke to a brutal morning as well. Big frost day across a lot of South Australia, and they're also expecting some more frost tomorrow morning, but it is clearing out of the main agricultural communities. It also looks like tomorrow morning a little bit milder across Victoria, especially around the coastline thanks to an onshore breeze. It's still going to be pretty cold, but we're not talking about sub-zero or close to zero temperatures. They're going to be hovering at around 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. Tasmania is still expecting to be brutally cold in the mountains, especially the further up you get around Leeuwarnwe. Also expecting a negative double digits tonight once again. The mountains in New South Wales as well expecting to go pretty cold, but the agricultural parts of New South Wales will be remaining a little bit warmer, and it is just starting to warm up a little bit now. That cold snap starting to clear out of Australia, which is just fantastic news, because I don't know how they do it. Minus 13 degrees Celsius, that is absolutely awful, with a feels like of minus 17. That is something indeed. So if you do live in Tasmania and you're currently being plagued by those absolutely freezing cold temperatures, let me know what it is like in the comments down below, and I will take Tasmania off as a place to travel in July. I'll absolutely not be doing that, that's for sure. While we're talking about winter weather, we're going to talk about Western Australia. They're expecting to be plagued by some cold front activity sometime this weekend and into early next week. Looks like we've got a pretty nice cold front setup starting to come in Saturday night. A very powerful low pressure system going to be moving well to the south of Western Australia, and it will be crossing the coast sometime Saturday night into early Sunday morning. It's not going to be too heavy in terms of rainfall until later on Sunday morning. There could be a couple of thunderstorms moving through the Perth area Sunday morning and into Sunday early afternoon by the looks of things, but it doesn't look like they actually make it to the coastline, with the rainfall being light to moderate from late Saturday evening right through into later Sunday morning. We could be expecting up to 15 millimetres in the Perth metro area. It won't be anything crazy in terms of rainfall, and it will certainly be very consistent and not too heavy, but still that is rainfall, and it is rainfall that we do need in the Perth metro area as well. The southwest also expecting some good rainfall as well once this cold front makes its passage through, up to 10 or 15 millimetres for some places. It's nice soaking rainfall, especially because it's going to be falling over a 12-hour period, and up towards Geraldton and Kalbarri expecting some heavier falls through there, but again at nothing too crazy. And you can see over the next 3 days over the next 5 days rather, there is some good falls expected here and there. Outside of Shark Bay, 30 millimetres or so, Carnarvon expecting 20 millimetres, but the majority of the coastline doesn't pick up anything greater than 15 or 20 millimetres, so again nothing too crazy, but it is still nice soaking rainfall. What has got me concerned a little bit, and I will just talk about this as a hazard, it's not so much a definite at this time, but it is certainly a hazard. Just looking at the line of thunderstorms that's going to be off the coast here, they're going to be very strong. Now they are going to stop. The forecast models are suggesting that they're going to stop once they get to the Perth area, or at least the Perth coastal area, but if they do get themselves close, they're going to be very powerful, and the Lewin current's going to help them to intensify just a little bit more. Now these thunderstorms, looking at them on the forecast models here, these look like stuff that will throw waterspouts and tornadoes out here and there. Also the chance of some small hailstones, so just a heads up, these thunderstorms are very powerful indeed, and thankfully they do get stopped before they get to the Perth area, and I believe that's because of a very unfavourable upper level environment for thunderstorm activity. If we were to take a look at sea surface temperatures right now, they're still very warm offshore from Perth, 22, 23 degrees Celsius in places, and that is why we've been getting such strong cold fronts move through the Perth metro area, because they've got a lot of fuel to intensify once they do get themselves close to land. That's another ramble on the thermodynamic part of these thunderstorms. Just going to get a forecast out here. Later on Monday, we're also expecting a cold front to line itself up over the Perth coastal area and into the south coastal parts, and that will come through late Tuesday morning and into early Tuesday afternoon for the Perth metro area. A couple of good falls and some thunderstorms also expected there. It's going to be a bit of a wild night with some damaging winds Tuesday evening and into early Wednesday morning. Those showers continuing right through Wednesday into Thursday morning, and once again it's going to be a cold start on Thursday with some strong winds from the west, and yeah, it could get as low as 8 or 9 degrees Celsius in the Perth metro area with a wind chill far below that, so just a heads up, you're going to need a double jacket day, I reckon. Wednesday it's going to be pretty cold indeed. A little bit more rainfall sweeping up from the south Thursday and Friday. They'll keep conditions relatively mild before the cold air takes its place sometime early next weekend or so, as this high pressure system starts to build itself up here. In all, some pretty good rainfall is expected over the 10-day forecast period. This rainfall on Tuesday and Wednesday expected to add up to about 60 or 70 millimetres for the Perth coastal plain and into the Darling Ranges as well, expecting some very good rainfall. The south coast also expecting up to 80 or 90 millimetres of the stuff, and from a little bit of a rain stream that's expected to head in towards Carnarvon and up towards Coral Bay, some pretty good falls are possible up there, but I do believe the rainfall will be hit and miss. It's more rainfall that they don't need for the Murchison as well, but the forecast has been back down quite nicely, and it is just the majority of the wheat belt that is getting at least 10 to 20 millimetres of rainfall, and in some places a little bit more. Around Katanning they're expecting up to 30 millimetres over the next 10 days, which is much needed rainfall, so that is fantastic on the forecast, but the Goldfields and the Murchison do miss out, which is pretty good news because they have had plenty of rainfall so far this year. A couple of drops expected there just to keep those rivers and dam levels topped up. That is another very long-winded Australian weather forecast. If I've missed anything or if I've left anything unanswered, then please do ask me in the comment section down below. I do look forward to getting back to you throughout the course of today. Other than the stuff that we've talked about, it looks like a pretty pleasant picture across the majority of Australia. Dry conditions through the west and the north as well, so that is some good news there. We still have that monster hurricane in the Atlantic Basin, so if you are interested in coverage on that, then go to the Cyclones Extra channel. There's daily weather updates on that system over there. But apart from that, that is all from me today. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. By the way, thank you so much for 16,000 subscribers. That's a massive milestone. We're well and truly on the way to 20,000, so I can't do it without your support. Subscribing is the best way to support the channel. That is all for me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.